in tech, but sports as well. You knew Paul. Just maybe real quickly talk about your relationship with him or your kind of friendship that you had with Paul.
So one of my first jobs was working for the Portland Trail Blazers. I was there from 1992 to 1998, helped build what's now the Moda Center, the Rose Garden at the time, and got to be around Paul Allen. We didn't work super closely together because there's a lot of layers between him and me at that time, but he's a very diverse guy. Obviously, a lot of people know him as the owner of the Seahawks and the Blazers, but what he did for the Brain Institute, space exploration, deep sea expeditions, he had his hands in a lot of things. He was one of the early owners of DreamWorks in Los Angeles, so really diverse guy. If you look at his portfolio, almost everything that he owned was a passion project. It was something he was passionate about. He didn't just sink his money into things. He wanted to roll up his sleeves and be involved with them. So that's one of the things I'll remember most about him. And I feel like, kind of like with Steve Jobs, that we're still on the cusp of some things. Are we gonna get that rocket that goes into outer space and sees his dreams through to completion? Are we gonna find the cure to Parkinson's through the Brain Institute? Are we going to find something that we haven't found on the ocean floor that he started? So he started a lot of things. My hope is that the team that is working on those things sees those projects through to completion for him. Now the estate of Paul Allen owns the Trailblazers and the Seahawks. So we don't know what was in his will. We don't know what his last orders were. But knowing how these things usually work, and I certainly haven't read the will, but how they usually work is in cases like this, and Paul has been sick before, the NBA and the NFL put together a list of prospective owners. So they vet you and they make sure that you meet all of the league standards. They make sure that you have the money to buy the team. They run you through a lot of different background checks, and then there's that short list. So now Paul's gone, they deal with his estate and say, okay, the NBA is going to deal with the sale of the Blazers with his estate, and the NFL will deal with the Seahawks and the sale of his team through the estate. So I would expect, these things don't happen quickly.
Sure,
even if you already have the owners lined up, there's still more vetting. A lot of times it comes down to the highest bidder. I think in the case of the Blazers, it's going to come down to there needs to be a particular owner who gets Portland. For instance, I don't know if someone from New York would get Portland. So I do know Adam Silver a little bit, and I can tell you that I think that's going to be important to him that they pick the right owner for this Trailblazers team.
Any chance it leaves Portland? Do you think that?
I don't think so. No.
Yeah.
No, I'd put it at less than 1% chance that the league saw what happened to Seattle when the Sonics left and what a void that created, and I just can't see them doing that here in Portland.
You mentioned it is not an overnight process, very complicated. I guess what are some of the steps we could maybe see coming in I'm not sure if it's days or weeks or months, or kind of what maybe are some of the key next steps as we move down?
So I think it is months at least. Who knows, maybe it's going into next season for the Blazers and, months ahead for the Seahawks. But I think now the groups that had come forward before or that the leagues had vetted, now you get serious and you really start taking a serious look at those and making sure they do have the finances, making sure there's no skeletons in the closet. There's even a little bit of who are some people on this list that we would love to have in our league. Is there someone that would bring an element to our league that we're lacking right now? And we've always wanted that kind of an owner in our league. So there's a lot of different factors that goes into it. But I think it's going to be a process that takes several months. It's not going to happen in the next couple weeks.
No, absolutely not. I know there was some chatter, I'm not sure if it was you or someone else who mentioned it, but it sounds like his sister Jody isn't really interested in the Blazers, but maybe more so the Seahawks. Do you see her maybe taking over the Seahawks, or maybe what's going on up in Seattle, do you think?
So there's two things. Again, it goes back to his will, and I'm sure, especially after he knew he was sick again, that he and his sister probably had these conversations. We don't know what's in that will. Everyone that I've spoken to over the last several years has said that Jody has no interest in owning a sports team. So my guess would be that the NFL is going to broker a deal for a new owner for the Seahawks, and the NBA will broker a deal for a new owner for the Trailblazers.
Gotcha. So it's the leagues handling most of the heavy lifting for what comes next then? Is that basically what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, you're deciding who to let into your exclusive club. And do they have the money? Are they going to represent you well? Do they fill a void business-wise that you don't currently have? Are they going to take care of the team in that city and that fan base? Those are all factors that go into determining who the owner is, and the leagues are going to be the driving force behind that. With the facts that I have in front of me, I would be shocked if the Blazers leave Portland anytime soon. I do know they have an arena lease that is coming up pretty soon, so that needs to be worked out. But I know it's very important to the league that the Blazers remain in Portland. And you could argue, you know, a lot of people speculated for years, well, Paul Allen lives in Seattle, so one day he's going to move the Blazers to his hometown. Well, if there's a new owner and they don't live in Seattle, now you don't have that element in play.
Very well said. Brian, anything else when it comes to the Trailblazers in particular, or the Seahawks though, that you think is important to note or that you want to touch on that we may have left out?
I think we covered it all.
Good deal. We sure appreciate your time.
No problem.
Brian, thanks so much, man. Appreciate it.
No problem.
All righty. Good deal.